All right. It is yet again an episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time we will be covering chapter 19.7. Just quickly getting the link out on Discord. Alright, well, I spent about 1,000,000 years writing today for this. I wrote all sorts of stuff that were paraphrasing of different conversations, and in the end, I went back and I deleted a lot of what I wrote, and I just kept, I copy-pasted the dialogue conversations into the script because I just felt like it was clunkier the other way, and I would rather do it this way. And so it did take me a lot of time to go back and just kind of delete out what I had done. Anyway, though, we have the same audience participation question as last week. In this chapter, as well as 19.6, there's a lot of cool combo attacks that we see, and including the one that, once again, we're going to see on the art, because I'm using the same art, and I'll just switch out to a few of the other previous arts as well over the course of the thing. Yes, given all that, what is a combo you'd want to see? And I'm going to give a slight extra warning, content warning for the end of the chapter, having some heavy topics. So, I mean, Worm's always a little heavy, but yeah, you have been warned. So, for themes, I just thought the theme of being reckless. That's a good theme, right? I don't feel like I need to expand on that too much. If you've already read the chapter and you've been listening along to the previous chapters, you get it. It's just a continuation of what's been going on. But anyway, jumping into 19.7, the chapter starts by saying there's a small but noticeable difference between before the cauldron reveal was made and now. Apparently people aren't working together well. But because of the current circumstances, the heroes are actually doing better than before anyway. They're generally keeping Echidna pinned down because she's worried there will be another time-frozen thread trap or something similar. So she's not moving around that much. And killing Ignis Fatus at the end of the last chapter was a big factor in the tides turning as well. Along with the fact that Echidna lost a huge portion of the captured capes, including key ones like Alexandria. Clockblocker shows up next to Skitter, and he's been fully healed by Scapegoat, but his costume is still destroyed, so there's a weird visual contrast of him looking like he's dying and also running around like he's fine. He asks her if they can set up another combo, and she basically tells him it's too chaotic to do without hurting heroes by accident. About a minute passes and Noelle isn't making any real moves, but her healing is slightly outpacing the damage that they put onto her. Hi, Vale. I'm glad you could make it. So eventually Clockblocker asks why she didn't tell him the plan. She says she wasn't sure if he would have done the plan if she had told him. He balks at this and asks if he's given her a reason to think he'd betray her in a battle like this. Skitter sort of realizes and admits at the same time that she doesn't even know why she did it. And Clockblocker says she's as suspicious of them as the post-Cauldron reveal heroes are of each other. Skitter admits the Cauldron reveal was a lot even for her, and Clockblocker doesn't know how they'll move forward. Oh, Vale says, I'm supposed to be visiting family tonight, but haven't heard from them, so maybe isn't happening. I'm glad you're here if you're here, but if you gotta leave, that's fine too. Oh, and before you came in, Vale, I had warned there are huge chunks of the later section where I had written stuff and then I deleted it all and just put in the direct quotes because it's like the paraphrasing ended up being so clunky. But let's see here. Oh, it didn't play in pause. Well, we'll just go right from the speed draw to the lo-fi echidna. Eidolon proves once and for all that he, in fact, could beat Alexandria by hitting Apocrypha, one of the two, with some power that seems to destroy her in one hit, sending concentric neon green circles out beyond the horizon. Skitter continues fighting clones from a distance. Clockblocker asks if Tattletale told her the details about his power, and he didn't even know he could send his power that far out through the interconnected pieces. Skitter just looks around instead of answering. A lot of important people just showed up. Tattletale, Labyrinth, Faultline, and the 4 travelers who are kind of working with the hero side. Regent's over there telling Tattletale something. Oh, Vale says, so you saying Imp got her hands on some sort of script? I am not following the joke unless that's an Apocrypha joke. Sometimes, Vale, they just go right over my head. I'm up in the clouds, and maybe, they're still flying over. Vale also said, by the way, I suggested Worm to a family member when I was visiting on vacation a week ago. He finished it in 6 days. Vale was saying the fact that I had deleted large sections of the script, that was an Imp joke. See, clearly you have mastered the Powers humor, and I have not. Anyway, so, let's see here. Clockblocker prompts a response from Skitter, but she doesn't know what to tell him. He's not right about Tattletale telling her, but I also don't think he would believe her if she told him that Tattletale didn't tell her, and it's like, she's not gonna tell him how Tattletale's power works anyway. So there's like a lot of reasons. But Clockblocker does something iconic. Yes, Clockblocker, of course we know more about how your power works than you do. How else do you think we would kick your posteriors with such frequency? Astrologer gives them a dirty look, and then goes back to fighting. Skitter's annoyed with him, but tries not to let that on, that he totally just got her ass. And then he goes, I thought it fit pretty well for one of the wealthy crime lords of Brockton Bay. Skitter realizes that Clockblocker is kind of opening up to her with this, and the internal monologue totally counter-roasts him. Was it humor as a coping mechanism, or attempted humor as a coping mechanism, to be more on target? Vale says, my jokes are nearly as good as the ones that Imp tells just before she alters everyone's memory to forget she ever existed. Yeah. She also thinks about how this might be like spillover cope from Clockblocker, given that if humor is a coping mechanism and everything's been thrown off this much for him. His path from the wards to the Protectorate is totally up in the air, even though it seemed like a certainty before. And it's unclear if these organizations will just break apart as a whole. So, she's thinking about all this stuff. And my opinion is, I think that he just likes her better after the combo attack. In the sky, in the sky, Eidolon kills the other Apocrypha. Given the ridiculous durability, my brain kept defaulting to saying that he had destroyed her, but that felt like I was doing the kids' cartoon thing of never admitting when the heroes kill people. But now that they've dealt with the Alexandria clones, the threat is no longer that big to Legend and Eidolon, so they sort of join in against Echidna, this time keeping a smarter distance. More of it, let's say. Tattletale reaches Skitter and asks if the clear split line in Echidna, as we can see here with this beautiful art, asks if that was Skitter and Clockblocker. When Skitter confirms this, Tattletale already knows there is a self-sacrifice element to it. Whether she learned from Regent or just intuited it with her power is unclear, but she pointedly tells Skitter that if she sacrificed herself, Gru wouldn't be able to take it. Skitter's focused on the fact that Clockblocker can hear them and hedges by saying that Gru is stronger than Tattletale's giving him credit for. Sensing the obvious, Clockblocker decides it's time to bounce so that the other two can have a one-on-one talk. Skitter thanks him for helping and trying to do a second combo attack. Then he heads off. Alexandria steps forward into the fight with Echidna and has a big girder she's carrying, like it's nothing. And she starts smashing the shit out of the big Echidna body and just slamming it into the side of a building. The girder doesn't bend because it's supposed to actually hold up a full-size building. When Echidna has one of the side mouths open up to vomit, then Alexandria quickly stabs the girder through the mouth, spearing all the way through and out the other side. It's pretty cool, although it's not clear if this specifically did a lot of damage. It may have been more symbolic and a distraction to give others a moment of respite, They're used to load management style fighting because of the Endbringers. By this point, the heroes seem to still be doing a good job keeping Echidna from making any big moves. But Skitter's worried that if they don't end this soon, another clone might come out with a power that can turn the tides here. There's also the problem that her, Echidna's healing is slightly outpacing all the damage that they keep doing. They got the big split from last chapter, and some they're continuing to fire upon her, but over time she'll probably get back up to full strength. Let's see here. I lost track of where I was. Oh yeah, there's during this part, that's the part I forgot to say. During this part, the Noelle at the top of the Echidna body is trying to crane her neck to seek Skitter. Tattletale tells Skitter that Sundancer can probably end this, but they'll need to finish the plan with Labyrinth to get her to help them fight Noelle. Scrub's almost here to have his power smash out the dimensional doorway that Labyrinth is opening up with her power. And here is the first of the long sections where I will just be not fully reading the book, but reading all the dialogue from the book with the he said, she said cut out. So let me take a moment and a drink before I start. Labyrinth's going to set up while we wait for Scrub. He's going to open the door. Open is probably the wrong word. What's the right word? I'd say it's more like using a battering ram than a doorknob. With dimensions Through dimensions. Knocking down the door, not knocking down the house. I'm not seeing the difference between the two. What's to say a given area is one thing over another? It's Labyrinth's job. So Faultline is counseling Labyrinth as she pulls out an ominous but currently small church building that's continuing to grow. We, have a pretty good understanding of how Labyrinth needs to be in an area for a while, so it's just building from scratch because she just got here. You think that'll be easier for Scrub to punch through? Positive. How do you punch through to the right place? That. She's doing a lot of that. Is something we'll have to trust to luck and an educated guess. Not reassuring. What's going on? I'm worried. Nearly getting yourself shot twice? Provoking the triumvirate? Spending however much it costs to bring Faultline into the city after the financial hit you took, pulling the soldier's gambit on Coil? Now this? The dimensional hole? It's how I operate! Yeah, you've been reckless before, got cut by Jack, provoked Glory Girl, but this is turning the dial to 11. We came out ahead in the end, both times. It wasn't necessary. There were other ways around either of those situations. Not as much as you'd think. And look, I see where Skitter's coming from, but you know that I'm on board with Tattletale saying even more. I'm just, my bias is too strong. Tattletale is one of two characters that come before Taylor in the pecking order. So, And so Echidna roars as Weld tears out of her side, carrying 2 capes. Apparently there are still 5 inside, but Weld seems to be down for the count. Tattletale walks away a bit, taking Skitter with her, slightly further away from the fighting and the other capes. While this is happening, Skitter's still guiding capes to clones with bug arrows and such, and taking part in pursuits while she's standing around. She says it's like a weird juxtaposition. There's a lot of Skitter feeling like this bi-modality or whatever, where she's both standing calmly and fighting. She's in this really tense situation, but she's not tensed up. It's like I guess that's not a thing. That's just her not exactly fitting the situation, but I don't know. There's a lot of weird dualities that she's dealing with. I'm just looking for answers. This dimensional hole, provoking the heroes, apparently spending a lot of money I'm pretty sure you don't have. I can kind of get that you're feeling a bit aimless, a bit unfocused. Maybe that comes across as recklessness. I'm feeling like that too. We beat Coil, and so much of what we'd done over the past while, it was with the end goal of doing just that. So I get if you're not sure of where to go from here. Except that you've been talking to the heroes, and you've had that to help center yourself, figure out where you stand. I haven't. That's it? You need to talk to someone? No, that's not what I'm saying. Yes, kind of. It's only part of it. Who the hell am I going to talk to that grasps things on a level I do? Do you really expect me to find a therapist and sit down and not pick him apart faster than he can decipher me? You could talk to me. Not when you're part of the problem. Part of what I need to work past. That's not fair. No, it isn't. So Echidna at this time spits a bunch of clones at the defensive line, but they hold up really well, and there are still obviously divisions between them, but the situation is under control. It's not you, it's more about my relationship with you. This isn't the point where you confess your undying love for me, is it? No. Then what? Or is this just going to have to be another secret you keep? All the good secrets are getting found out anyways, or so Regent said. I suspected that they would be, for the record. part the reason I dished like I did was to put us in a good position in case the juicy stuff did come out. Not sure I buy that. You don't have to. It was only part of it, and I understand if a more in-depth explanation is overdue, but I need to turn it around in my head some. Get to the point where I can share it without it coming out wrong. Your trigger event? That's a part of it. But can we please put this off until after we've torn a hole in reality and stopped the pseudo-Endbringer? Just tell me this isn't another educated guess. It's not, except for the bit where we might be able to find the right universe. When you're saying it's not an educated guess, is that because you're sure or because it's an uneducated guess? I'm mostly sure. I sighed, loud enough for her to hear. While I was reading all that, Vale said, "No, Taylor, number 1, you are factually incorrect." True, you got me. You're right. But yes, these conversations between Tattletale and Skitter, I just felt like were so important that, like, I just wanted it. I wanted the whole thing in here. I don't know. Vale says, "You waited long enough that my argument won by timeout." Oh, fucking got me. Damn it. That's correct. Well, Vale, I can't read that aloud. That's mid spoilers enough for even. I'll allow it. You can say that in the thing. If somebody's watching back the vid, they can see this. But that's slightly too spoily. Slightly too. Anyway, so but bring that up again later when we're, all the way there. Vale said, "I'm so worm-brained from my recent family member who read it and we talked a lot. I'm so sorry." No, it's no big deal. I think I told you this before in a previous stream at some point, but I got my aunt to read it to like arc 11, and then she gets to the part with the Slaughterhouse 9, and she just can't keep reading. And so I was like trying to explain what was happening. But despite her scoffing at me initially being like, "There's some supplementary material to like help keep things straight in your head and stuff," then she had a big scoff of like, "I think that I can figure this out on my own. It's a pretty obvious story." And then we get to the part where I'm trying to explain what's happening in the story. She can't remember any of the character names from the previous sections, and it's like, all right. And I don't really think that she was getting what was happening on like a deeper than surface level too. It was really disappointing because it made me sort of able to realize like, oh, she kind of always looks at media on a surface level, and that was a bummer. Anyway, though, after Skitter sighs loud enough for her to hear, Tattletale takes Skitter by the hand and leads her back to where Labyrinth is. Faultline starts threatening Tattletale about if she doesn't follow through on the payment. Tattletale says, "I'll pay you as soon as I'm in front of a computer that Shatterbird didn't destroy," and Faultline admits that she can see that this is a situation that needs quick action. So the small church has become a temple-like tower in the time that it took them to step away and come back. What's Vale saying? "I get what's happening on a deeper than surface level. Sadly, I am not an aunt." Yeah. You got, you're never gonna beat us there. You failed to be an aunt. Skitter asks Tattletale if she's sure about this. She tells Skitter that with some of the clues they've gotten about powers and passengers recently, she's getting a sense of the bigger picture and how powers work. She thinks that a lot of the powers are more versatile than the cape with the power actually knows. Legend lasers Echidna where she had just been hit by one of the remaining, or by another cape. And one of the remaining capes is, like, exposed. So Grace leaps up, grabs the cape, and then kicks her way out of there. And some random acid-breathing power is used on the wound to try and slow the healing. After Scooter asks for more details, then Tattletale says, "It's all part of the whole. Scrub! Get closer to the tower! Everyone else, get back! Labyrinth! Don't use your power anymore! Hold off!" People have noticed the tower, and they're starting to look at what's going on here. Scrub moves toward the tower, and after one of his random blasts intersects with the labyrinth-altered space, it immediately... I say space, I should say volume. With the labyrinth-altered volume, it immediately turns into a white void with no visual depth to it that Skitter thinks looks like Gru's darkness. The door had been kicked out of the frame. Vale says, "Oh hey, is there an audience participation?" Yes, it's just the same one. Because that's what I said at the end of the previous episode. And that's the one I quoted at the start of this episode. So yes, it's what combo attacks do you want to see happen? So a slight breeze is caused by some air passing through the portal. Alexandria lands next to them, and anyone who's not actively fighting or watching Echidna is focused on this. "What did you do?" "Made a hole." "Apparently. You didn't ask. You didn't consider the ramifications of this? Close it now." "Who said we can close it?" "You're a fool." "I'd be careful. Wasn't so long ago that your partner called us all fools." Echidna's screeching in the background and fighting, but not really making any progress. "That wasn't him. It wasn't Eidolon who said that." "Close enough. Let her go. You can't throw around authority you don't have." "As of this moment, I am still chief director of the PRT, and I am the leader of the protectorate team that overlooks the second largest city in the United States. That hasn't changed. At the end of the day, I'll face any consequences I have to, but for now, I'm still in charge." "Your authority doesn't mean anything if they don't accept it. Put me down." And, I didn't want to ruin the scene, but I every time I hear that, I think of Jenny Nicholson being Emperor Palpatine going, "Put me down!" Man, one of my favorite YouTube quotes. Vale says, "Make up a combo like the Clock X Skitter one?" Yes, indeed. That is correct. So Alexandria tells Tattletale that this can't go further, and she says, oh, and, I should just change this to Tattletale. I know I probably will never read this again, but in case I do. Alexandria tells Tattletale this can't go any further, and Tattletale says back that it's all the way gone. Now they have to see how useful they can make it. Tattletale says worst case scenario, they find an empty world to dump Echidna into. Alternatively, if Labyrinth can figure out how to pick worlds, the Void, then they'll be able to, do other stuff. I don't know how I worded the sentence, but basically the Void changes forms as Labyrinth starts experimenting with it. And Tattletale gets Alexandria to set her down, but Alexandria still has a firm hold on her shoulders. Labyrinth describes the portal as being deep with worlds that she didn't make. Tattletale says there should be a world that's easier to access than the others, like a path that someone has already walked. When Labyrinth says there are 2 worlds like that, Alexandria slightly reacts, and Skitter asks her about it. Alexandria brushes it off, and showing the first of 2 options, there are grassy fields and hills in a Brockton Bay that was never built upon by humans. Which, again, gets a minor reaction out of the normally very buttoned-up Alexandria. The second possibility is an undamaged city that is the Brockton Bay of Earth Aleph. Having an altered layout, the portal doesn't lead to a big street like they're on. It leads to an empty back road. So Tattletale announces that this is Earth Aleph, and Skitter realizes that this is so the travelers can go home. Alexandria says this could start a war, and that there are already treaties against this kind of thing. Tattletale counters that if war was possible, they would have had it already. Alexandria says that she doesn't know what she's getting into, but Tattletale says everyone here is going to call this portal an accident to keep things copacetic. Then goes on to say that this will put Brockton Bay on the map, and they won't be able to shut down the city anymore. Presenting the options in her favor, Tattletale says that they can either let the portal become a source for resources and Brockton Bay is able to revitalize due to the importance of the portal, or they can keep all this a secret and do what mean old Alexandria wants to do. And then we get back to conversation. You have no idea what you're doing. Fucking you over? You're putting everything at stake. All of us. This world. Even if we ignore the chance of our very first interdimensional war. Traitor! I can't help but agree with Alexandria. This is reckless. More than a little. But I'm not sure I was with you from the time your helicopter arrived. When we last ran into Neuter, you guys were looking for dirt on Cauldron. You still looking? Why? No less than 10 minutes ago, Eidolon's evil double admitted full culpability, the Triumvirate, much of the upper levels of the Protectorate, kidnapping people from other universes, experimenting on them to figure out some power-inducing formulas, dropping them here. Might help you to understand why people are giving Alexandria the evil eye. A little too easy to find out like this. It's not the full story, not by half, but it should inform your call on whether to side with her or not. That's not... No. Maybe she is the person behind the scenes. Fine, but that doesn't change the fact that she might be right. Better to have Labyrinth find another universe to link to. Maybe one where a mountain is blocking the other side of this gateway. If we can't close it. Why do you have to be so reasonable? That's the worst of both worlds. It's not war. Stop. There are other concerns. The deal was described to me, or the deal that was described to me was that the travelers would do what they could to eliminate Echidna. Failing that, we find a way to move her through the gap and deposit her in a place where she can do no harm. That's our first priority. And that was Chevalier cutting in at the end. And of course some of them lines were fault line after the traitor. Alexandria had no more lines. But, it's just a good back and forth. These conversations, these would make good TV scenes. The kind of thing where you'd put like one scene to film and not like try to do a whole show. I know that everyone would want it to be a whole show and then it would suck. I just have like no faith in live action TV anymore. Even though there are good shows, there's so many like most adaptations are just not very good to me. But anyway, Tattletale offers the 4 remaining travelers that they are able to go home if Sundancer works with them. Sundancer says it's not home anymore, that she can't go back because she's killed people and she has powers now. She brings up the idea that she's not Marissa anymore. She's Sundancer now, and it would cause a problem. Tattletale says that they don't have to know about her life here. I don't know if I can. Are you talking about going home or killing Noelle? She was my best friend. She's not Noelle anymore. Go. She's not happy like this. You do this, then you get home. You give your mom a hug, fabricate an excuse to explain why you disappeared, and then go back to life as normal. Never use your powers again if you don't want to. See if you can eventually convince yourself that none of this ever happened. It's not that easy. No, but it's a hell of a lot better than staying here, isn't it? She's my friend. Was. It's a big difference. Does she have anyone inside her? Tattletale started. I flew a bug into her mouth and down her throat. She choked. No, I lied. I've been keeping track with my bugs. Weld and the others got everyone out. Yeah. Classic. Another lie to Marissa. Skitter thinks to herself that they saved everyone they could. No one corrects what she said, even though they know. Without saying anything, Marissa stands up and walks toward Noelle, forming the sun as she goes. Chevaliers yells for their forces to clear the way, and final layers of powers are thrown onto Echidna to keep her down. Marissa moves the sun above her head, and people have to back away from the ambient heat as it grows. Echidna makes a concerted effort with the melting ice. She's able to break through some of the barriers. Range capes start immediately unloading everything they have on her, and Alexandria sets down Tattletale in her cape and then flies in to hold down Echidna in the last moments. Marissa! Echidna screamed, her voice guttural, voiced from 5 different mouths. Mars! It's too soon! I want to kill them! I want to kill them all! Kill this world! Destroy this universe that did this to me! Not yet, Mars! The sun is sent forward and fully envelops Echidna and Alexandria. She holds the sun there for a minute before letting it flicker out of existence. Only the outermost parts of Echidna are left, but without the core, those parts begin to crumble away as well. Alexandria stands alone, panting for breath. The only thing left of her costume are the metal parts that have become molten and run down her skin. Marissa starts to take off her mask and costume, letting them fall to the ground, which is still hot enough to melt the pieces. Wearing only a camisole and shorts, Marissa walks through the portal and is out of the story. Without a word, Oliver and Jess pass through the portal as well. After hesitating for a moment, Ballistic asks about Trickster. Chevalier tells him that he's going to the birdcage. Good, because we don't want him. Ballistic also passes through the portal, costume on. Can you close it? No, not really. I can pick a different world so there's no war, or do like you said and find a place where a mountain covers the whole. Feel free. In fact, that might even be more useful. Can you imagine how significant Brockton Bay might become if we had a whole unpopulated world to get to, harvest for resources, and Brockton Bay was the terminal you had to pass through? You used us. I hired you. Not my fault if you didn't ask for enough money. Can you find a world without people? Yes, there's one with lots of trees. I'm looking all over, and I can't find anyone at all. Not even on the other side of the oceans. Only animals. That'll do. Not for you. Only because I couldn't stand to let her be responsible for an Endbringer finding a defenseless world. Much obliged, whatever the reasoning. Vale says, this whole scene just goes to show that gamer groups hate couples. What a winding way to get to that conclusion. Oh my god. So Weld, Gully, and Sanguine start to confer with Faultline. Skitter thinks that the people here probably feel untethered in the same way that she had been feeling after letting Dinah go, unsure of what to do now. Eidolon gives Alexandria her cape so she's not just naked this whole scene. And now that Echidna is gone, all of the remaining capes were in a semicircle facing the two of them. Alexandria says no one can know about this. Cape scoffs at this idea, and she says they can't cover up the Capes who died, but they can't tell the full story. Rhyme says that she's got no place saying that. Alexandria says that's an understandable position, but gives a defense of her actions, which is about as strong as Alexandria did nothing wrong. And someone spits in her face. She's totally deadpan about it and doesn't even react. Continuing her argument, she says that if word got out about not only the clones, but what they did to kill them all, it would wash away all the goodwill they've built up for Capes over the years. Miss Militia asks how the Protectorate is supposed to continue now that so many people know about the Cauldron involvement. Alexandria says that she and Eidolon will retire and use Mirdan's death as the public reason why. She's going to leave it up to Legend to decide if he's going to leave the Protectorate or stay, saying that he knew much less than she and Eidolon had. A sideline Cape that is unnamed says that they should be tried for their crimes against humanity. Alexandria says that they can't because it would be too damaging to Capes as a whole, leaving them too weak to fight back the Endbringers. Miss Militia asks about the captives from other worlds that Cauldron is still holding on to, and Alexandria lies that they've stopped human experimentation. I think she lies. Not 100% sure. Tattletale calls her out on it, and then Alexandria says, "Tell me I'm lying." And then Tattletale just sort of semi-scoffs and looks away. So it's kind of unclear, I guess. Alexandria says that they still need her and Eidolon for both Endbringers and the image of heroes being upheld. She goes on to say that Cauldron is out of reach, even if she wanted to help them do something. Skitter thinks how Alexandria is everything she despises, then tries to speak up for a moment, is too quiet, so she uses her swarm voice to be heard, talking from all directions. She steps up to Alexandria, then turns to face the crowd of Capes. Skitter makes a little speech and tells them that they should keep the Protectorate together because the world needs them, and she asks them to convene together and talk this out before they make any decisions. Jouster yells at her and says that she's not going to have to wake up in the morning and go work for the Protectorate, so she can't tell them what to do. And before she goes, she says, "Thanks for hearing me out. Good luck." So Atlas flies down, and Skitter brings her whole swarm around her as she stands atop his back, flying off. Once no one can see her, she sits down. She flies past Legend, and she almost says something to him, but she can't think of what to say. And despite the importance of the discussion going on behind her, Skitter heads for her lair. Vale says, "Retirement imminent. No more captives. It's all true." Alexandria is now honest about things no matter what. Never makes stuff up to suit a situation. Jouster, "You don't have to wake up and work for the Protectorate." Skitter, "Have you seen Regent, though?" And then, I almost left off the last part because it's imp cackles, so that the joke would be that I forgot to read it, but I couldn't do that. This has yet again, our friend the Page Break to send us to another scene. So Lisa shows up at Taylor's lair where she's gotten to and asks if she can come up. Taylor directs her with bug arrows. I own the land the whole to the other universe is on, or Coil's fake name does, and I can finagle it so I have control over it. The meeting? Did they decide? Legend left first, then Alexandria and Eidolon. The heroes were still talking when I left. Okay. There's a brief silence between them, and then Lisa opens up to Taylor about Rex. She describes him being popular and charming. Taylor asks if he was her boyfriend. Ha! She laughs once, and she says that he was her older brother, telling Taylor that when you're rich, you're not really a family in the same way. And she thought that he was only reaching out to her with token offers of siblinghood. So she started to resent him. They had lived in the same house and went to the same school, but they didn't talk or interact. And she noticed that he started to... Even though they weren't interacting much, she still noticed when they did that he was starting to change over time and was doing worse and worse until he... This is the warning part here from the top. So if you're a sensitive listener... Anyway. So then Rex kills himself, and Lisa says that she noticed, but she was never able to figure out what the cause was. And there's sort of imagery of two children fighting, and Taylor uses her bugs to break up the fight, and both children run off. Taylor tells Lisa she's sorry. Lisa says she is too, and she's never been able to figure out what had happened with Rex, but she let on to her family that she had noticed something, and they started blaming her and calling her an idiot, leading to her trigger event, which she thinks happened to her in her sleep. She accidentally lets on to her family that she has powers, and it was extra hard to hide because she was having the migraines to go with them. Her family tries to suck up to her and get the benefits of her power, which leads to her running away. Eventually, Coil found her, and then she found Taylor, and she was immediately drawn in, feeling like Taylor was in a similar state to Rex. Anyway, just... This is where I more or less read the rest of the chapter. It's not as long as the other grabbed sections, but it's still kind of long. Earlier, you said that you couldn't talk to me about the problem because I was the problem. I saw it when you pulled the trigger, off Coil. You saved Dinah. You described how you felt adrift in the aftermath of it, but you found a new focus. You could fight Echidna, save the city. Me? When you shot Coil, I realized I was done. I'd helped you out of the same trap of despair Rex had been in. Don't know if the road I helped you down was a good one or a bad, but I'd finished. Because I did what I had to, I helped you, and I still feel like the stupid, self-obsessed little child that let her big brother die. It wasn't conscious, but maybe I felt like I needed to up the stakes, pull something dramatic. Show that with these crazy smart capes like Alexandria and Faultline around, I could still be the smartest person in the room. And do you feel like the smartest person in the room? Maybe. Maybe when the inter-universal trade takes off. Can you imagine? With me and you as the top dogs? The whole world will pay attention to us. I hopped down from the railing, walking around Atlas as I made my way to Lisa. I wrapped my arms around her, and she returned the hug. I crumpled the papers in my fists. Yeah, very sad stuff. Yeah, I don't know why, but reading that line, where Lisa says, maybe when the inter-universal trade takes off. Can you imagine, with me and you as the top dogs, the whole world will pay attention to us. Made me really sad this time. And I don't think I had reacted to it in this way in the past, but yeah, kind of bummed out. Vale joking about probably when Taylor killed Coil. That part makes no sense. Taylor was completely mentally stable at that point. And then also says, I always get sad at these chapters. Yeah. So for the arc stuff, I said with only the interludes to go... Oh, I should do final chapter thoughts. This chapter is... I'll do the final chapter thoughts after the arc stuff, because I actually wrote something for that. Which is, with only the interludes left, we've seen everything but the double denouement. There are a lot of moments where all feels lost for the protagonists fighting against Echidna / Noel. And I think the tragic conclusions to the various Traveler storylines were all very well done. Especially the last exchange where Noel yells out to Marissa. I guess it's not an exchange, it's just one way. It's just Noel. But there's a reason I read it like I did. I've always felt like the audiobooks reading of it in the main Rain audiobook was very good. A lot of like roughness and desperation, and yeah, I don't know. It's just there's a lot going on. But overall chapter thoughts, there's crazy amounts of like the portal getting opened up, then Tattletale saying I don't think I can close it, which it didn't occur to me before they opened it that they couldn't close it again, which in hindsight feels way more obvious. But oh, and I haven't been swapping around through the pictures. I had told myself I was going to show off some of these as we went. This was going to be the part that I showed when she pukes at the crowd to try and break through the defensive line. I was going to show the Alexandria thing. When she did the girder move and when she flew down to confront Tattletale. But I didn't. Now did I? We'll look at Silly Echidna to be happier. Yeah, there's just so many different things going on, like Miss Militia and Chevalier reacting to the Triumvirate being against their, well, not against them, but like corrupted from the beginning, etc. Because it's a pretty big deal to them, and they've both been in the Protectorate for many, many years. What else do we got? I don't know. I think I'm going to talk about the characters than the powers, knowledge, and world building. I don't have. I'm not sure what other specific chapter thoughts I have. It's just like it's really long. It's really good the whole way through. It's a conclusion to like a whole huge section of the story. It's a conclusion to like the arc for every traveler, pretty much. Yeah, amazing stuff. So getting into the characters, I wanted to start off with Dennis. Good conversation between him and Taylor. I like when he's opening up to her. I think that's cute. I like when they get the disapproving look from Astrologer, and this is where Astrologer gets mentioned in the character section. Then we've got some of the big guns. We've got Eidolon. He was able to take out the Apocryphas with some attack so devastating that if he hit Noel with it, it would have just like flattened a big chunk of the city. You got to imagine a lot of people were able to see whatever attack he had used because it went off over the horizon. And they do admit that there was a fight here. They just don't like admit what that entailed. So I kind of think it's funny if they're like, yeah, something real crazy happened. Can't tell you about it, but crazy. We don't learn that much about Eidolon this chapter. We learned more about Mr. Dolan in the previous chapter when we had learned from Ignis Fatus about him being kind of an asshole. I know that the clones are like naturally evil, but he seemed really put together, just in a way that it's like, no, he's really like consciously being the worst. Anyway, with Eidolon mentioned, I will move on to Alexandria. She gets way more lines. She not only has the conversation with Tattletale, but also, we sort of see her react again and again to the idea that there's this third primary world, which is probably where the Cauldron facility is, that like Labyrinth was able to sense, and that they briefly saw a glimpse of the Brockton Bay equivalent there. That's just the empty fields. We already know Alexandria pretty well because of her interlude chapter in Arc 15, but we just get to see her interact from the outside, and not just interact, like fly around and punch somebody, but, you know, be the actual cunning brains behind the triumvirate that, you know, she is. She admits to a lot of stuff. It's pretty good. I like how stoic she is, like infinity stoic points. I think she makes a lot of good moves at the end here. Like, she is able to successfully, more or less, convince the heroes to do her plan. And she does have to leverage herself and Eidolon leaving the protectorate, but she, like, even weasels her way into, like, keeping the door open for Legend staying. And with Legend, you know, on the docket, I think that he is able to openly show his feelings that he's had since Arc 14 of betrayal from the other two in the Triumvirate. And he, you know, probably has a bunch of crazy mixed feelings about Cauldron. I wonder if he ever reveals... Like, I don't think he would, but I wonder if he ever reveals the secret about Battery having been a Cauldron Cape. I don't think it would ever come up, but who knows? Then we got Hana. She is pretty upset. She, like, when all the shit was going down, she kept her eyes on Echidna and was occasionally firing into the fight. But she had backed herself up so that she was physically close enough to hear the conversation that Alexandria was having about the portal and stuff. So she was making herself present and known, and she confronts Alexandria more than just once. Chevalier is there. He sort of cuts through the shit a little bit. Is just like, look, Alexandria, we can fucking table all that. We need to think about how we stop Echidna. And then he's one of the people yelling at them later. Hana and Tattletale, I didn't mention, were both silent when everybody else was yelling at the Triumvirate after the fight. I put Jouster and Rhyme together because they both have different iterations of, yelling at people in that conversation. Jouster yells at Taylor that she's not part of the thing. Rhyme yells at Alexandria that she has no right to tell them, like, what to do, basically. And, Rhyme is clearly, like, a pretty important cape, being, like, number 2 to Chevalier, and is clearly just as broken up about this as everybody else. There's various background heroes, a lot of people who are mentioned saying something who may even be people we know, but they aren't described well enough for us to identify. We got a Chronicler mention and Grace mention, more or less. Skipping on to Weld with Gully and Sanguine as a tag-along. I had to mention this here. On We've Got Worm, they were super annoyed with Weld, and they questioned why he stopped going in to get capes back out, and they seemed to think that it was, like, him just not wanting to go back. But I thought it was pretty clear he was, like, collapsing from exhaustion. Aside from anything else, like, a Melty Hands guy tried to melt his organs out of him earlier, like, 20 minutes ago. So, like, I don't know. Give him a break, man. He saved everybody else. It's like, you expect him to do all the work? I don't know. They're talking with Faultline. They're obviously very betrayed. They were more standoffish with the rest of the Protectorate than even the other Protectorate members with each other. And they end the chapter talking to Faultline. They're sort of deciding what they're gonna go do after this. I put Scrub. Scrub shows up. I'm pretty sure he's mute, so is silent, and walks over to the labyrinth creation, and his power knocks the door down, as they say. And like with most parahumans things, like a second trigger event, when you open those doors again, it's more like you're hitting them down with a battering ram, and they're never going to fit quite on their hinges the right way. And this is similar to that. They're never going to close this door. So, a brief mention for Gregor, Neuter, Shamrock, and Spitfire. Skitter could tell they took battle damage before this and wondered if they had been off on a job. They just get that very brief mention, and are clearly part of the reason why Weld, Gully, and Sanguine go over to Faultline. Faultline herself, she's her usual self. She hates Tattletale, is suspicious, wants money. Those are Faultline's 3 traits. She's good this chapter. She's just doing normal Faultline stuff. I really like her line where she goes, "It's not war." We've got Elle, kind of in a talky mood. She gives off like 3 whole sentences, which for her is a talky mood, because it's not one word at a time. Very important powers-wise to this, but moving on to Jess and Oliver. They do not get any lines in their final chapter. They just leave. Luke, he's pissed, and he's still ballistic. He's going ballistic. Marissa, very sad moment where she gets talked into killing Noelle and lied to again by Taylor into killing the 4 capes that are inside. At the time when I read this, because they never mentioned getting Vista out, and I understand that Vista got out during the end of Arc 18, and it's just like a whole side thing, and there was previously a chapter that sort of detailed that on and on. But that chapter's not in the book by the time I read it, so I didn't know about that, and I had thought that Vista was one of the capes that was scoured away by Marissa, but it turns out that she's still alive. And Noelle has her final, like, sad moments. She's like, even to the end, trying to get revenge on Skitter. And it's like extra sad because she had those like moments in her own interlude where she has the moments of like self-reflection and more or less realizes that the power has been altering her mind for so long that she didn't notice it, and her blame on the Undersiders doesn't actually make a lot of sense. Regent, nominally here, but he doesn't do or say anything firsthand. We get to hear his recounting by Lisa, or by Tattletale, as all the good secrets are getting found out anyway, or so Regent said. Rachel, again, she's theoretically here, but is neither seen nor mentioned, actually. Lisa, we learn about her trigger event. This is one of the biggest Lisa chapters. Her gambit with the portal here, pushing everything to the limit, being yet another untethered. It's funny because now I definitely associate the term "the tethered" with the movie Us. Um, but moving on from that, yeah, Lisa. We learn about her brother. We learn about her parents trying to take advantage of her powers. Her we we finally get put to words the stuff about her relationship with Taylor that has been both obvious and yet under the surface this whole time. Um, yeah, a lot of rough stuff, like her looking forward to the future with Taylor and stuff, and us sort of knowing it's not going to be that simple. And then Taylor, also all over the place this chapter. She's confronting Lisa, trying to get things back on the rails. Still reeling after hearing like the full info about Cauldron. She has another moment like I was talking about at the beginning of the chapter where she sort of feels one way and acts another in terms of like the way she hates Alexandria, but for a greater purpose she walks up and speaks up for Alexandria. Not for her herself, but to agree on how they need to move forward. I feel like I should have more to say about Taylor in this chapter, but I said a lot of it while we were reading through the summary. If I think of anything more, I shall say it, but for the time being, I'm going to move on to these little quotes from the Powers, Knowledge, and World Building. I thought it was cool how in the time when Taylor was waiting out the silk threads to lose their time stop, she had bugs forming big black bars around them so that it would be obvious and heroes wouldn't fly into them. I also liked the descriptions here of the thing that Eidolon had done. I'm just going to read them out. Another circle exploded across the sky. Alexandria Clone 2 was down. Legend and Eidolon descended in Echidna's direction, keeping a healthier distance. Whatever Eidolon had been hitting the clones with, considering the area it was covering and the fact that it was apparently taking Alexandria out of action, it suggested the kind of attack that couldn't be used near the ground, because it might have leveled whole sections of the city. I think that's cool. Because, as much as I like the characters and the themes and stuff, I will say that I still think the superhero fighting and all that, very cool. I'm a big fan of those moments as well. In this part, Echidna roared again, each of her mouths making a slightly different noise, combining into a discordant noise that made almost everyone present wince. Weld tore his way free of her side, 2 capes in his grip. It's very evocative writing. She wasn't an Endbringer in the end. It would be impossible to trap any of them like this. To get an advantage, they had other tools, ways to exert pressure that were entirely independent of their own abilities. Behemoth generated storms and background radiation. Leviathan had the waves. The Seamerg had her scream. And then we've got sure, our side has more raw firepower by a factor of 100, but their side has just as many nukes. It's a zero-sum war. So I have a dumb nitpick about this, but I do not think that this is a representation of a zero-sum situation. That would rely on the idea that whatever was lost by one side would be equally gained by the other side. But if both sides nuke each other, they'll lose lots of the people and material overall on both sides, with a net loss between the sides. even if one side is victorious in the end. So I understand what she's saying and what she's implying using the term zero-sum war, but that's just not what that means. Oh, and I just like this little text here about Marissa walking by. The ground was still shiny and smoking from the sheer heat as she approached, left cool and solid in her wake. You know, just cool parahumans moments. And then, this part here, the quote from Tattletale. I think I had my trigger event while I was asleep, tossing and turning and dreaming about it all. And then, boom, I wake up and I start figuring things out with killer migraines on the side. So, I think we can take at face value that Lisa thinks this is correct. But I think it's perfectly plausible that she had her trigger event while awake, but does not realize it because, like, we've seen her brain around trigger events. She forgets almost as fast as everybody else, and the more she tries to hold on to it, the more it slips away. She can very slightly pierce the veil of imp, but not really for the trigger events. Anyway, that was the end of those quotes that I had pulled. As far as anything else for powers, knowledge, and world building, like, obviously the status quo has shifted yet again, as it does in every single arc. This time it takes a sort of major swing, given, you know, the situation. So, we get to the audience participation. In these chapters, we see a lot of combo attacks, including one of the most infamous skitter combos. What is a combo you want to see happen? And we got one new answer, which is from Vale. I want to see the Accord and Kidwin combo. Okay, so world hunger is one thing, but finding a way to get Kidwin to win is an entirely other thing, while not killing him along the way. The challenge, inner struggle, and eventually a win, where none would even be thought possible. Amazing. I'm not sure how Accord and Kidwin make this combo work. Accord doesn't really work for giving one-on-one advice. Does Kidwin make like a drone army and Accord controls all the drones? Vale, you know, every time I write a question, Victoria just says, like, they're just gonna avoid the question and they're just gonna talk around it. And it is true. This is what happens every time. Anyway, my version of them doing a combo attack is Kidwin is like, I've got my entire drone army, but controlling such a large-scale thing is way too complicated, even for me, or an AI like Dragon. And then Accord is like, you plebeian fools. And then he takes the controls and he's beep-booping on the computer. And man, he's like as efficient with this drone swarm as Skitter is with bug swarms. It's going crazy. There's like drones everywhere and they're doing like swoops and loops in the air. Different squads are doing different stuff and they're like intermingling and swapping about. It's the craziest drone fight you've ever seen. Vale is saying it's a 10-year plan that includes taking over 3 continents. There are 400 3-ring binder volumes of plans for how to get Kidwin to win. It's glorious. Vale says, by the way, I never avoid your questions. I'm sure that Victoria would come up with examples, and it's not exactly how she had said it, but more or less. Just like, if I don't word things in some exact way, she'll be like, no, you can't say it like that. They'll just give you the shortest dumbest answer. But Vale says, I would like to see examples and apologize. I have no ill intent. No, I think that you're just, it's when you are 2 + 4 × 5 go for a joke, and it's just like, damn it, I kind of wanted real answers, and I got roasted by 2 people just, like, answering the question in, like, the obvious workaround way. Like, okay, here's an example. When I would say, how would you react if you were in X character's shoes in this situation? And then you would say, I would do exactly what they would do because I would be them. And then I kind of facepalm, you know, just a little bit. Vale says, I would react with humor and panache. Yeah, in all the situations. So, you know, as far as, let's say I want to answer this question, I would like to see, oh man, so many of the good combos where I'm like, this would be lit, come from me just remembering things that happen in Ward. I'm like, what if someone was to fly around on one of Narwhal's force fields? And then I'm like, oh wait, that literally happens. And it's awesome. All right. Let me try and think of some answer to this question before I go out. Oh man, it would be really cool if Clockblocker could stop Gru's darkness. So someone would be running at it, thinking it's just like still gaseous, but then they just donk into the side of it. Another cool attack. There's a cape from Ward named Gunnery Ann who can basically make any long-range attack longer and any melee attack a ranged attack, and I want her to add ranged clock blockies so that he can reach at people and get them without having to touch them. It would be very powerful. I think that as a combo, they could lock down an Endbringer for like huge amounts of time. It would be great. Because we've seen that Clockblocker's power does work on Endbringers. Which you'd think that to a being who is mostly power immune, that wouldn't work. Anyway, we can be done with that question. We can move on. The question for 19.y took me like 1 second. I booted up the chapter, and then I was like, oh, it's this chapter. And then I immediately wrote this question in a shorter time than it took me to read it. What would your Parahumans Online handle be? And what cringe things would you post about? That's for next week. So I'm gonna start the wonderful outro music. And yes, thank you, Vale, for being here. The next chapter we cover will be 19.y with Victoria. Thank you for the take care, Vale, and you also take care. The music used in this episode, as it has been, is Queen Scourge by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at www.twitch.tv/Scarlet_Rogue. The Discord server link can be found in the description, as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. last little bit of the song right out. Talk to you guys later.